secretariat, and he will be in charge of the election of the chair for the 2018-19 year. Before that, we've now, I think we've done it every time, so I'll do it. And that's to say, the chair, prior to handing over, addresses the Assembly. I just want to start with thanks, some congratulations, and a few commiserations. I'd like you to join me in putting our hands together and thanking all the staff in this building, because they enable us to do our day's work. Yeah? Just say thank you. And an extra special clap in there for facilities team, who they just do such a fabulous job, and sometimes are so good they're invisible, and we thank them for all that they do. I want to congratulate those of us who now have another mandate and are now elected members of councils. Congratulations to you. And because it's political life, I don't know who, but I'm sure we have to give our commiseration to some of us who went out there but just didn't get the numbers, so commiserations to you. During the last year, I hope you'll agree with me, it's been a really unusual, interesting year. I mean, one of the things that strike me is that this year, it seems to me, that we've worked more as an assembly, because there has been some really big issues, so bigger than the sort of groups that we're a part of, big issues that face Londoners, that we as the Assembly, we have had to work together on a cross-party basis. And without doubt, we're at our best. We represent London to the fullest when we are working as one. When you look at the work that we've done and supported on gun crime, when you look at the work that we do day in, day out on the budget, when you look at the work that's come out of our Brexit working group, absolutely on par with anything else that's been done, and that congratulate the people on that panel and our chair going to give evidence to the Select Committee. Our voice, what we do, matters now. People want to know what we're doing. As I go around, it's not so much now I'm asked, what do you do? I'm asked, what are you doing? So that's the shift that we've seen in the 18 years of this body. I led a delegation with Ed and some others, and we went to the DCLG Select Committee, and we were bold and upfront in our championing of scrutiny. And we were saying, you know, the issue isn't do we do too much. The issue isn't why is our budget so large. The issue is maybe the DCLG should be looking at why are other scrutiny bodies so badly resourced? Why is it that people find it difficult to champion scrutiny? Because without scrutiny, what we have then are elected individuals with total power, with no challenge. How can that be? That's totally unacceptable. And if you don't know, our submission was taken in full and was replicated in the DCLG report. We have seen the development of something I think is fantastic. A couple of years ago, somebody told me, important person, said, we're not a lobbying body. And I just thought to myself, well, you might not think we are, but I'm sure we are. And I'm sure as a politician, I lobby for things. I lobby for change. I think what they were saying is we hadn't reached that stage where we could reach a cross-party consensus on an issue, as we have done in terms of the domestic, calling for the domestic abusers register, where we're now on track with government, with their discussions on their bill, with influencing or relating our work with our colleagues in Westminster. I think that's a watershed moment. So from coming from a position where people have said, you are not this, we are actually doing the work that is relevant, and we're doing it on a cross-party basis. Cross-party and unity, we have been in a position too many occasions in London where we've had to stand together. But again, you know, when we stand together, when we stand united, we are showing others, especially those who believe they can come and terrorise us, that we are London and we will not be threatened by anyone, because when the threat is seen, we stand together. This year, which I'll never forget, and as a feminist and a campaigner, I'll never forget it for that reason, and that is, you know, this is such a very special year. And we will remember those of us who were at the unveiling of the Millicent Fawcett statue. I don't think there was a dry eye in that space. And it was men and women and young girls and everybody, because we were just trying to envisage how it was that these group of women stood up to Parliament and said, enough's enough, women have got to get the vote. You know, what bravery. We owe them so much. Because of them, young women have goals and aspirations which they're achieving. I congratulate the women, I'm not being sexist here, male colleagues, but I congratulate the women on this body, because you are here and you are showing and you are an exemplar to young women who, if they want to get in politics, they can look at your pathway and they can say, do you know what, if Caroline Pigeon can be a major force in London government, then I can be. You know, they can look at Nikki Gavron's amazing history and be awed by it. You know, they can be encouraged and inspired by the women who are sitting around this table. So, great year. It's been such a privilege being your chair. It's not an easy job. And people usually say, if I've upset you all, then that's good. I hope I haven't. What I've tried to do is find a way to be appropriate to all of you. You know, our work needs to continue in the same way. We've now reached plateaus where we've called Secretary of State into this room, even though we knew him well and knew what he was going to say. It was right that we summoned him. And we now have BBC broadcasters who can say they've been in front of committees, and others will be queuing up, I'm sure, to come and give their evidence to you. So thank you for the year that we've had. I think it's been like, you know, we're 18 years old. And so, you know, 18 years, it's a great time, isn't it? We have got to be proud, we've got to be courageous, and we've got to be the champions of scrutiny, because nobody else is going to do it. So I look forward to the next year in support of the new chair and working alongside you, colleagues. This is the London Assembly. It's a great place to be. Thank you.
Group leaders can speak now.
Call upon group leaders. They can have a say. Call upon Assembly Member Bacon.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I think it's correct to call you that for at least the next 4 or 5 minutes. I am just now entering my 11th year as a member of the London Assembly, and Jeanette has just completed her 5th, I believe it is, as the chair of the London Assembly. So Jeanette has chaired this Assembly more than any other Assembly member in the entire history of the Assembly. Almost 1/3 of the entire existence of the Assembly, Jeanette has chaired it. And she's been an unswerving supporter of the role that our statutory role, which is to scrutinise the Mayor and the functional bodies and to take the lead on issues that matter to London. There are 5 different political parties represented in this room, so not unsurprisingly, there are disagreements and there is argument and there is debate, and that's perfectly healthy and normal. But there is, as Jeanette herself said just now, a tremendous amount of cross-party working that goes on as well. Most of it is inevitably behind the scenes, and almost all of it is conducted in a very convivial way. And Jeanette has been at the forefront of all of that. And whilst there will always be debate, I do agree, and it tends to be on specific issues as well, that the party is far stronger, the Assembly is far stronger when we work in a united way, in a cross-party consensual way. And I think that there has been some very good examples of that in the last year. I think probably in the last 2 years, certainly out of the 10 that I have been here, the last 2 years there has been a significant step up in the Assembly working in a united way. And I think that we are stronger for that. So I would like to thank you very much for your latest year. This feels like a speech that I have given a number of times. I'm sure I'll be giving it again in another 2 years' time. Thank you very much on behalf of my group for all that you have done. Enjoy the slightly more restful year as Vice Chair, as opposed to Chair, and of course we will be welcoming the new Chair in a few minutes, but in the meantime, thank you very much for your service.
Thank you. Assembly Member Pigeon.
Thank you very much. I'd like to really put on record my thanks to you for a fantastic year, because you are, as has been said, a champion for the Assembly. You always have been, and our work. And you go out and sell it to Londoners, to Parliament, to government, and beyond. And when you go and do your work over on the continent in Europe, you talk about our work to other bodies and countries as well. And it's so important, sharing good practice, sharing the examples where we have held the Mayor and the functional bodies to account, and where we have had a change as a result. But you are just such an ambassador for our scrutiny, and it is important, because who else is going to champion that role? And we've seen it diminishing, really, in local government. But you're also a huge supporter for members of this Assembly, and as someone who, sadly at the moment, I'm not a member of a group, there's only me here, you have always made sure I'm included in everything and that I'm fully informed if I haven't been able to make a meeting, and that is so important for our working together. You also supported, I had an event in the year with the London Air Ambulance coming up, and you came and supported that, and you hosted a fantastic Women's Day event with so many inspiring women. Many of us were there from different walks of lives, different ages, different backgrounds, really inspiring in this important year of celebrating women 100 years ago, or some women getting the vote. You are a superb champion for us. You've had a great year. Thank you for all your tireless work, and look forward to supporting you in your role as Deputy over the coming year.
Thank you. Assembly Member Berry.
Thank you, and I don't have an awful lot to add. I think the speech you just made was really, really appreciative of a lot of the work that we do here. And I wanted to thank you particularly for your fair and firm chairing, particularly of Mayor's Question Time, which I think both us and the Mayor don't always make that easy for you, but you've been brilliant. I think I also want to thank you for the good wishes to the women members here. It was a really powerful moment in Parliament Square, and I think we are all proud to be somewhat role models to younger women out there who may be thinking of joining us in future. And it is quite exciting to be 18. It means that the next time we get elected, potentially someone who was born after we were created could be on this body, which would be a fantastic thing. Please apply to your parties, please, young women out there. And Champions of Scrutiny is exactly what we are. We've had to defend that role this year, and I think we've done that very successfully, to the extent, as you point out, that other bodies are now looking to us as a model rather than looking to diminish our role. And I'm very proud of the amount of consensus that we've achieved on a number of issues in the Chamber this year. So I'm looking forward to another year of doing this job as a body, and also to a new chair taking over from you, who I'm sure will work as hard, as firmly and as fairly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Assembly Member Whittle.
Yes, Jeanette. We'd like to add our voices to those thanks that have gone before. It's always struck me, we're relatively new on the block, it's always struck me with the warmth and humour as well that you managed to inject into meetings and indeed into Mayor's question time. And you've always been extremely fair. I've always been very impressed as well, for example, at Remembrance Service. Your presence there and the way you present us and the way you represent us there. So thank you very, very much for that. We have been struck, obviously, as well by the level of unity that there is in the way that people do work together here. Assembly Member Bacon said it happens behind closed doors, much of it. Well, next time it does, can you invite us along? But anyway, in the meantime, thank you very much for your work. Thank you.
Thank you. Assembly Member Duval.
Thank you very much, Chair, for the last time, if I may call you that. I think you have spoken for this Assembly in the way that you've just indicated before. I think you've carried out your duties magnificently, as others have said before me, and I think you will be a good deputy to Tony Arbour in the coming year. You are a staunch advocate for this Assembly. We need those across all parties, there's no doubt about that. But more importantly, you're also a good advocate for keeping the quality of our work up to speed. And I think that's important as well. So thank you very much for your work you did over the last year.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And my deputy chair, I never know what he's going to say.
Well, the longest relationship I've ever had with a woman other than with my wife has been with Jeanette.
He's with me.
And she and I have travelled the City Hall Road pretty much since the organisation was set up. And we get on jolly well. In a moment when I make her a presentation of this bouquet, beautiful bouquet at the back here, I'm going to give her a hug. And,
no pictures, please.
You've been warned, Jeanette. You've been warned.
and I bet after this very fractious week in London politics, this will be the only place where a Tory gives a hug, not to his Labour opponent, but to his Labour colleague. Thank you, Jeanette.
Thank you. Let's put this down and do it properly. Thank you. Over to you.
Okay, thank you,
And
Chair.
hand over now to our Head of Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. In a moment, I'll call for nominations for the office of Chair of the London Assembly for the forthcoming year. In the event of one candidate being nominated, and if it's clear there are no other nominations, I'll ask for speeches in support of the nomination, speeches from other members, and then declare the nominated candidate as being Chair of the London Assembly. In the event of two or more candidates being nominated, I'll pause the process and explain the rules in more detail. Once the Chair is elected, they will conduct the election for the office of Deputy Chair of the London Assembly. And can I now have nominations for the office of Chair of the London Assembly for the period until the next annual meeting?
Chair, it's my privilege to nominate Assembly Member Arbour to be the next chair of this Assembly.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Assembly Member Bailey. At that point, can I ask for speeches in support of the nomination?
Can we say, we know how he chairs. We are looking forward to a really important year with Tony. I'm looking forward to be in support of him, and I would just welcome him to the chair and to say enjoy championing the Assembly in the forthcoming months.
Thank you. Assembly Member Bailey.
I am happy to second Tony because he is a rare mix of quality and class. He'll be an excellent chair. He's done it before and he'll do it again. Thank you.
Would any other member like to speak at this point? No. So with that, and in the absence of any further nominations, I formally declared Assembly Member Arbour as the Chairman of the London Assembly for the period until the next annual meeting. Congratulations.
You've got your own pack.
Well, thank you very much. This week, it's half a century since I was first given the privilege of being elected to represent a community in which I live. Do you know, half a century sounds an incredibly long time. Makes me feel a bit like Methuselah. Indeed, my grandchildren think I am Methuselah. But half a century sounds infinitely longer, doesn't it, than 20 years and 10, or more than 50 years. And during that time, I, as all of you, have been answerable to an electorate. Sometimes the electorate has been good to one, and sometimes the electorate has been bad. But those of us who live by the ballot die by the ballot, and we're all used to this. And I have had small triumphs and small disasters, both at the town hall and at county hall and at city hall. But on each of those occasions, one is doing something for a particular community. And I have been particularly fortunate in, throughout that time, at whatever level of local government there has been able to represent my neighbours. And I think that that's an extremely important link which elected members should have. Now, one of the things about local government, and it is a truism, that the two most boring words in the English language are local and government, and combined people yawn. And we in local government have one of these terrible difficulties. When people ask us to do something, very often we have to say, well, it's not me, Gov. It's those people at County Hall, or it's those people in government. And members of Parliament say, not me, Gov. They say, it's the function of the minister, it's the function of the government of the day. But the truth of the matter is that we all have a role. It's a bit like a marriage, isn't it? Where if the thing works terribly well, one partner takes the big decisions and the other partner deals with the small decisions. In my particular household, I am entitled to make the big decisions. I'm entitled to say, yes, we shall make peace with Korea. You know, I'm able to say that I think that man Trump is bonkers, or whatever it may be, and my wife makes a decision as to what we're going to eat, makes a decision of where we're going to go, and the way things are done. And we each are doing something which we consider to be important. But the key point I want to make is this, that no matter how small or how large, it really depends on our own perspective, we see our role in this place, we are actually doing something. I get no greater kick out of driving through my patch, or more often in my case cycling, or walking very slowly through my patch, looking at something and saying, I did that. It wasn't for me. See that used to be a pothole. Well, I cleared that. Not as significant as making the big decision about who to go to war with or who not to go to war with or anything like that. But for ordinary people, for our neighbours, it is the most significant thing there is to them. And I think that we need to understand that and take comfort from it. 2 years ago, when we had the election of the third mayor here, I said that we had pretty much become of age. I suggested, for example, that one of the indicators that we have come of age is the fact that buses say City Hall on it. You get out of the train at London Bridge and there's a notice which says City Hall and so on. And people are expected to know what it is. You hear it, you know, with the guides on the London buses, you know, they're coming past here, or the people on the tourist boats coming past City Hall, and they say over there is City Hall, you know, Sadiq's salon, or whatever is the thing. Possibly more often than not, people don't even need to know who it is who inhabits the place. They see the building, the still iconic building, which is City Hall, and they know what it is. Unfortunately, we still do not know, and the public still do not know for sure what it is exactly that we do. When people talk to me about it, I say, well, when I first came, when we camped out at Marsham Street all those years ago, well, the budget was 3 billion. The budget has increased fivefold and continues to increase, and yet people are still not desperately sure what it is that we do. Now, I don't know whose fault that is, whether it's our fault. Of course, I would say that it isn't our fault. It's a fault of the legislation, which in effect gives us responsibility without power. Many of us will have had the experience of getting the blame. I stand on the railway platform in the mornings and the train is late and they say, it's your fault. You did that. Train is late again, you know. And I try not to fall into the syndrome I've already expressed, you know, the not me gov situation. It wasn't me who did that. And I would very much hope that in the coming year we are able to lift our profile. It's exactly as Jeanette said, that we did have a Secretary of State coming here for the first time, which I think was an important moment. We want to have that kind of thing happening as part of a regular interchange between Westminster and City Hall. We want parliamentarians to think that we can add value to what they do. Certainly we believe that, certainly so far as scrutiny is concerned, that we add value to what they do. But people out there need to know about it. It may be that we're a bit too boring, you know. But I've lived through the experience of having an exciting and dramatic mayor when people came in to watch the mayor entertain. But entertainment is just part of politics. Politics, as I indicated, should not really be as boring as the phrase local and government suggests. Now, being part of a democratic body which represents the whole of London really is more even than the simple privilege of being elected. There can be no doubt whatever that this is indeed the greatest city on earth. It's a cliche, and we are bound to say that. But right across the world, people say London is the place to be. You know, it does all happen in London. We have had a very testing period over the past 12 months, disasters of various kind here in London. But whilst those disasters took place, at the same time, this great city has been thriving. The economy of London has boomed as never before. Tourism has hardly hiccuped because of the events that there have been. We walk out here, it really doesn't matter what hour of the day or night we're out here on the Queen's Walk, and there are people here. You travel on a bus, you travel on a train, you walk along the Queen's Walk, and every language under the sun is being spoken. This is the place to come. And it ought to be our job. And I know it is your job, and you say it is your job, to see that we shout from the rooftops, not just the trite cliche that London is open for business. No one ever said London was closed for business. But London is throbbing, London is thriving, and London is a place which we want people to come to, and we are part of that great thing. When we're elected, we see ourselves as servants of the community which elected us. In this particular role, however, and I really am exceedingly grateful to you for electing me again, I'm not the servant of a political party. I am not the servant of the people who asked me to represent them here at City Hall. I am your servant, and I am London's servant, and I want to be a faithful servant and discharge that responsibility. Thank you so much. It's now my task, please, to ask for nominations for Deputy Chairman. Could I have nominations, please? Assembly Member Bacon.
Assembly Member Arnold, so I'm having a trees moment. Assembly Member Arnold, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Is that seconded, please? Thank you.
I stand to second Assembly Member Arnold.
Okay. Thank you, Assembly Member Sahota. Would anybody like to make speeches saying how wonderful Jeanette is?
I think we've heard enough.
Can I please therefore formally declare that Assembly Member Arnold is Deputy Chairman of the London Assembly for the period until the next annual meeting of the Assembly.
Thank you.
Apologies for absence, please.
We have apologies, Chairman, from Assembly Member Twycross and Assembly Member Devenish.
Right. I have an announcement to make. You will recall that over the past month or so, indeed it seems much longer than a month or so, we've been going through a period of PERDA. Many members of the Assembly believe that the PERDA rules have been applied far too strictly here, certainly as compared to the rules which apply to our colleagues at Westminster. So I'd like to read a statement on this, which I hope will deal with the controversies surrounding PERDA. I know that Assembly members across the political spectrum have expressed concern about what appears to be the heavy-handed application of the PERDA rules at the GLA in ways that particularly disadvantage the Assembly. The sight of the Assembly and the Mayor being forced to discuss matters of urgent and genuine importance to Londoners in private session during April, with the public and the press literally shut out of the meeting, was for many of us simply unacceptable.
Yeah.
The Assembly as a public body will always abide by the law of the land, even in cases where the law may be said to be an ass. But in this instance, many people feel that the application of the pre-election rules to the GLA's operations, particularly in relation to the democratic role of the Assembly, is just plain wrong. Public trust in our institutions is vital, especially in relation to those bodies who are supposed to speak up for Londoners and their concerns at all times. An overly cautious approach by officials will only cause that trust to be eroded. With that in mind, the Assembly has tasked the Executive Director of Secretariat to raise these concerns with the authority's monitoring officer to look at the ways in which the rules are interpreted and applied in future, and to report back to leading members as quickly as possible. We believe that what happened during April was wrong and do not want any repeat of elected members being forced to meet in private. I'm not intending to open this matter up for further debate at this point. Officers have been given clear instructions, and we can come back to this once we receive further advice. And I hope that deals with the matter. Yep. Yesterday, the Assembly's Police and Crime Commission. Do we have a commission here? The Assembly's Police and Crime Committee. Commission sounds rather good, doesn't it, really? Launched an urgent investigation into violent crime in the capital. This is in response to the surge in violent crime we have seen on the streets of London. Through its Police and Crime Committee, the Assembly will look for answers regarding why the upsurge has occurred and what strategies can be employed to keep Londoners safe. The investigation will also examine whether the Mayor's knife crime strategy is working and whether there are any alternative approaches that could work for London. Would you please note the recommendation set out in item 3 relating to declarations of interest? Thank you. Does any member have any additional declaration to make? Thank you very much. Will you please now approve the minutes of the London Assembly meetings, which were held on the 8th of March 2018, the plenary, the 22nd of March 2018, which was Mayor's question time, and the Confirmation Hearings Committee meeting held on the 17th of July 2017, to be signed by the Chair as a correct record.
Agreed.
Thank you. You will have before you a tabled document setting out the proposed committee structure their terms of reference, memberships, chairs and deputy chairs. I propose dealing with items 5, 6 and 7 together. Firstly, I must ask you whether or not you wish to disapply the proportionality rules where committee membership is not politically proportional in respect of the overall membership of the Assembly. Would you agree to that, please?
We agree.
There must be a unanimous decision, Chairman.
Yes, that needs to be unanimous. Was there any dissent? Good, thank you very much. Will you please establish the body set out in the tabled appendix as ordinary committees and subcommittees for the period until the next annual meeting of Assembly in May 2019, with the size, constitution, terms of reference, membership, substitute members, chairs and deputy chairs as set out in the tabled agenda. Thank you very much.
Agreed.
Will you reconfirm the existing standing delegation to the Chair of the Assembly in respect of powers conferred by Schedule 4A of the Greater London Authority Act 1999 as amended, to decide to hold a confirmation hearing and decide whether to request the candidate to produce any documents and delegate appointment of the Chair to the committee for election at each meeting? Okay.
Agreed.
Thank you so much. Item D. Will you please reconfirm the previous decisions of the then Business Management and Appointments Committee in respect of committee meetings and work programmes as set out in paragraphs 4.5 and 4.51 of Agenda Item 5? Thank you very much.
Agreed.
Yes. Will you please note the timetable for London Assembly and its committee meetings for the 2018-2019 year as set out in Appendix 1?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Now then,
Simply to agree the recommendation set out in item 9.
yes. Would you please, in item 9, simply accept the recommendations relating to corporate governance? Thank you.
Yeah, agreed.
Right. Now then, in relation to the appointment of the interim head of paid service, will you please approve, noting that it is a joint decision with the Mayor, the appointment of David Luntz, and he's somewhere.
Straight ahead, Jim.
Yes.
David Luntz, Executive Director of Housing and Land, as the GLA's interim head of paid service until a permanent chief officer appointment is made and that individual takes up his role. You agree there?
Agreed.
Thank you. Will you please note the work of Assembly members for what they have done on outside bodies? Thank you very much.
Noted.
Will you please agree to use the 21st of May 2018 plenary meeting to hold a question and answer session with Sadiq Khan, Mayor of London, regarding the draft environment strategy?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. The next scheduled meeting of the London Assembly is scheduled to be Mayor's question time, which will take place at 10 o'clock on Thursday the 17th of May 2018 in the Chamber City Hall, subject to decisions taken by the Assembly in relation to the dates of Assembly and Committee meetings. Thank you. I don't think there's any other urgent business. Thank you very much.
Record.
Boom, boom.
43 minutes.
GLA, Chamber, Sound. GLA, Chamber,